designers really have to have the superpower of communication visually, conceptually, whatever. And so I see that our role is primarily facilitation. We have to take in ideas, inputs, concepts, answers, data from all different parts of, number one, the organization, and number two, the customers and the users. And you have to smush it all together to try to come up with something that's going to move things forward.
Welcome to Concept to Care, where we hear candid stories of success and failure, discuss strategy, and dive into the details that offer advice on what to do and what not to do in health tech.
Whether you're a seasoned pro, growing your career, or just starting out, our aim for this podcast is to be relevant, real world, and tactical. We're dedicated to not only entertaining you all, but also empowering you with actionable insights that can be applied beyond the podcast, one concept at a time.
This is Angela.
And this is Omar.
Welcome to Concept to Care.
Today, we have a special guest joining us, Lisa deBettencourt, a product design leader and founder of Forge Harmonic, an innovation and strategic design firm that works with healthcare and life science organizations to envision and create solutions that transform the lives of people, care providers, and health systems. Lisa is someone who I enjoy and admire a lot, so I'm happy she could make the time to be on this show. In this episode, we dive into Lisa's journey and explore how her work is reshaping the landscape of care delivery. We'll discuss the critical role of design in healthcare organizations, the nuances between experience design and product design, and the importance of aligning design with business goals. Lisa will also share insights on prototyping, the power of storytelling in design, and how her team at Forge Harmonic collaborates with clients to create innovation solutions that enhance the patient experience. Get ready for an engaging conversation filled with laughs, valuable insights, and inspiring stories that highlight transformative power of design in healthcare. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
We are very excited. This is the first time we're bringing on a product design leader, so this is a treat for both the audience and us. Before we get into the meat of things, why don't you go ahead and just tell us about yourself?
All right, sure. So Lisa deBettencourt. So I own a small design-led innovation studio called Forge Harmonic, based in the Boston area, work specifically in healthcare. It's been around for about 5 years. I worked in-house at a variety of different health tech companies, building and leading their design organizations, and been doing experience design now for too long. Came out of the world of engineering and hardware, experience design, pre-.com era timeframe. So been around the block a little bit, but I just focus right now specifically in healthcare.
We are excited to be talking about design. We hear a whole bunch of different terms: experience design, product design, UI, UX design. Tell us about what that means to you.
Well, having, like I said, been around the block for a little while, the names have changed so many times. I think when I started, I was an interaction designer, and then that turned into experience design, and that turned into product design. So it's, in my mind, it's kind of all just a big semantics game. A lot of the names really mean the same thing, and the titles mean the same thing, and the roles are kind of similar. Some people are very passionate about there being a significant difference between product design and experience design. I don't really get hung up on titles and names. So the biggest place where that shows up is when you're looking at job descriptions, if someone's looking for a job. And it's really just about what the skill set entails that's listed in that job description. So a lot of companies call them different things, and it really doesn't matter at the end of the day if you're working towards your strengths and the organization is benefiting from the work that you do. So for me, it's kind of all very similar. User interface being the thing that's probably the most different or unique from the other two, in that you're really focused on the visual aspect of it as opposed to the functional, the workflows, the interactions, the user interface layer. The topmost, closest layer to the user is, for me, the one that stands out as being much different.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I find if you ask anyone on the street, do you know what this is? They're like, yeah, of course. And then forced to put a definition behind it. It's like, actually, you take pause.
Yeah. One
thing I do always say, it's like when I'm experiencing good product design or good experience design, I know what it feels like. You know the feeling of it, you know the touch of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, healthcare organizations in more specifically. or a health tech company, how does design effectively plug into those kinds of organizations?
Depends on what kind of organization you're talking about, right? So you have the care delivery, organizations, whether it's hospitals or the more tech-based services that are delivering care, clinical care, versus the software developers themselves who service the healthcare industry, or specifically service the healthcare industry. So when you have a physical space, such as a hospital or a clinic or something like that, you're plugging in it a little bit differently because you're thinking about context very differently of how your products and services are going to be used and what the experience is going to be like with all the people that are in that space, versus when you're working with a software company, you're trying to design and deliver a software experience that plugs into, other technologies that their customers have in place and the users of those, that suite of technologies. So, it really depends on what the organization is like, how big it is, what their level of maturity is. There's a lot of those kinds of different aspects that define how you plug in as a designer.
I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about the role of designers. I know that a lot of designers I've worked with in the past have this pet peeve where they're like, don't ask me to make things look pretty. And so can you help?
God, it's so true.
Yeah. I think just
sizzle. Can you make it sizzle? How do you define that?
Right. And so how do we get people to understand the true value of, what you all do? And do you have any recommendations for how to correctly ask designers for their help and get the most value out of their input? It's
such a huge question, really. So how do you first engage with the designer and how do you get them to help? You started with, they get the question of, can you make it look pretty? But really it's backing it up so much further into what's the problem you're trying to solve. And it's a little bit of it's a yin and yang, right? Because you have to understand the skill set of the designer that you're working with, and you have to understand the problems that you're trying to solve. So the designers can engage, that you want to engage them early on in the process, especially if they're human-centered designers, really focusing on workflows, really focusing on human needs. You want to engage them in the earlier stages so that they can start to collect information, collect customer insights, collect understanding of how people work in their environment or the challenges that they're facing, right? So they can go out and do some research. If they're sort of like a generalist designer and they have this research capabilities, then you can engage with them there and help them really try to shape and define the problem that you're trying to solve. And then they can work with you through the process of, creating concepts, whittling down as to what your priorities are, creating the concepts around how you want to solve the problem or serve your customers in a new way or in a better way. And then eventually you get to the, if it's something that has a visual aspect to it, the look and the feel of it. That's really, trying to engage folks a lot earlier than having engineering already building something and saying, can you fix this up for me? Can you clean it up for me? Make it look nice.
I heard you say a little bit about involving designers to help shape the problem that you're trying to solve. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that as we understand the roles and responsibilities. So, a lot of times for a product, I think one of the most important jobs of a product person is to figure out what problems to solve and then to bring it to the team to say, this is the problem we're trying to solve. This is the metric that we're measuring. These are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. Now let's do discovery as 3 legs of the stool to do that. Do you agree with that approach?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like, if the product is sort of the captain of the ship, they're saying, we're going to go towards that island. Right. And the designer can help guide, how you're going to get there. It's not like, where are we going to go on this map? Right. Product is starting to define where there's opportunities, where there's market potential, those kinds of things, really big, starting out with this grand, like opportunity spectrum and whittling it down to, we're going to go in this direction. And then the design role or the research even role can start to really help shape that and refine that and provide more clarity and more definition around it. So, there may be through that process, new opportunities that hadn't even been, uncovered, thought of, or anything that gets brought to the surface along the way, of course. And then you might change your mind, be like, oh, actually, this is another thing that we hadn't even thought about. But really, you're setting the course, and then design can come in and help, help shape how you get there and uncover a lot more information about that problem space, the people in it, the needs, all those kinds of things. So I totally subscribe to the Marty Kagan, three-legged stool, the triumvirate of, design, product, and engineering. Big fan of that. And so absolutely, I agree with that.
Lisa, you and I have talked about this a lot. Product design is critical in facilitation and alignment. How can design sort of support in the facilitation and alignment in the product development process?
So this is like my soapbox.
Please.
Yeah. I think designers, every role has a different set of superpowers, and designers really have to have the superpower of communication visually, conceptually, whatever. And so I see that our role is primarily facilitation. We have to take in ideas, inputs, concepts, answers, data from all different parts of, number one, the organization, and number two, the customers and the users. And you have to smush it all together to try to come up with something that's going to move things forward. Well, you can't move things forward, or you can't come up with those concepts or those new stories in a vacuum, right? And you can't just go into a cave and spend 4,000 hours coming up with this amazing solution and then have a big reveal, right? But there's more, whoosh, everything, right? Because all you're going to do is just alienate everybody that's in the room because they had no idea what was going on. And so a big part of the role as a designer is to keep everybody in the loop, showing, taking all the information in, getting suggestions, getting ideas, putting forward a concept that tries to bring all that information together, and putting it back out in front of that same group and saying, okay, what's missing? What's wrong? What's broken? What's right? What are we missing? And walking through that part of it in depth to, foster the communication and get ideas back quickly, bring up any challenges. Oh, that won't work because it's going to be too expensive, or that will take forever. We don't have the tech to do that. Or did you think about this? Oh, if you show me this now that I think about these three other things that we didn't talk about. So you're coordinating all these moving parts, and you want to get the disagreements out early, and you want to start folding in all of the new information. And I just see the work that we do is it's experimentation, number one, but it's also it's an object to put in front of people to get some sort of signals back, right? It prompts people. It's it gets people to think and talk about, where you want to go. And at the end of the day, you're collectively and collaboratively generating the solution that you're eventually going to put forth into the market or into your users' hands. And so what happens along the way is two things. One is everybody's bought in. Everybody knows what the solution is, so they can go back to their respective roles, teams, whatever, and they can start talking about it. Oh, we decided we're going to do such and such. And so in order to do such and such, we have to prep for this thing, or this new thing came up and we have a little bit of a pivot and we need to talk about that. And so what happens then is that they become, a little bit missionaries for those solutions. And when everybody's on the same page, then the organization can kind of move forward and work more cohesively together because everyone has a better, fuller understanding of the solution that you're going to put forward. At the end of the day, the idea is that you don't want to have any surprises amongst the team that's going to be, producing that solution, whether it's a product or a service or what have you. You don't want surprises. Every once in a while you have a surprise with an executive that's been out of the loop for a little while, and they come in and they do their Siegel management thing, and you're like, okay, well, how is that going to change, what we're doing? But you sort of you recover from those things and you realize, oh, we probably should have brought them into the loop a little bit earlier. But you don't want surprises. You want to try to mitigate as much risk as you possibly can, as early as you possibly can. And you do that quickly and cheaply through these conversations, these quick prototypes, these discussions, and just keeping everybody in the loop. So that's where I see the role of facilitation being such a huge piece of our work.
Interesting, maybe spicy follow-up for that. I think I've seen this manifest in so many different ways. There are weird complexes in, you talked about that pillar or that stool, the three-legged
stool. Yeah.
The three-legged stool. And, one might argue the product manager, that's their job, facilitation and alignment. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
And so, how, what's the argument there for? Is it one person's job? Is it many? Like, how would you? What's your perspective on that?
I mean, I think we're facilitating different things. Product managers have to facilitate their own set of keeping the business informed of the goals. And, I'm not a product manager, right? So there's only so much that I can speak to that. But I know that there's a ton of work that they're constantly updating executives, and they're constantly updating the business and the finance side of things and the operational side of things to make sure we can deliver on whatever it is that we're promising to deliver on. So we just have I think we're just focused on different areas, but it's a Venn diagram. Like, there's huge overlap. They take the work that we're doing and they communicate that outwards. We take the work that they're doing and we're incorporating into the product, into the solution, into the experience. So I think it's just, we're all facilitators. We're just facilitating different things.
Talk to us a little bit about how you pick the right approach to design within product development. Are there certain frameworks that you like to think about, or processes?
This is like the most famous design answer ever. And it depends. I don't know if you can see behind me, I have this giant bookshelf filled with books, and a big portion of those books are methods books. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the processes and methods and, frameworks that we can use on any given day. But, it all really you have to pick the approach that's right for the task at hand. So if you're doing a new feature in a massive enterprise level application, you're going to take a different approach because you have subject matter experts in your organization and you have a different timeline. You're going to take a very, different approach than if you're doing a 0 to 1 innovation, project where you have a market that you're going after and you don't know necessarily everything that you need to know about it and you're not sure which direction you're going to go in. So how much do you already know is a big variable, a big piece, right? Do you already know a lot about your customers, about their workflows? Enterprise and healthcare, there's a lot of subject matter experts that are inside the organizations. And you can mine that knowledge. And then you can leverage your end users in a different way. It's also really hard to get to them because you have about 47 layers between you and the end users of your product. And then if you're just doing, like I said, net new, speculative, you're doing maybe future casting kind of stuff, like where could we go in 5 years? It's all just, you have to pick the framework or the approach that's appropriate for the task at hand. And like I said before, what are your goals and what are your success metrics? How do you know you've accomplished your goals? And so you have to define or choose the approach that you want to take based on the need, really. Because you can't, design thinking, I'm going to pick on design thinking for a second, but like design thinking is like the method framework du jour, right? It's super popularized, especially in healthcare. It's really, infiltrating the nomenclature. Ooh, design thinking. It's got its place, and it can be used in certain ways, but it can't be used in all the ways. It doesn't make sense to do a 12-week long discovery research, project when you're doing a, iterative design on a small part of a screen in an enterprise application, right? Like it's too much of a sledgehammer. So you just have to really take the time to think about what's the best approach.
All right, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about human-centered design. You've brought it up a couple of times. Can you define human-centered design and explain how it differs from other design approaches?
So human-centered design is exactly how it's described. It's creating solutions that come at it from the lens of the human needs first. So you're talking about psychological, social, cognitive, ergonomic, emotional, physical needs of the person that you're solving for, or people that you're solving for, relational needs as well. But you try to understand their perspective and their needs, and then you try to design solutions for them with their needs in mind. And I'll juxtapose that against a lot of other ways that organizations try to solve problems, is more linear thinking. Like we have a problem and then I have this technology I can shove in and fix it that way. Throw more money at the problem. Or, there's business approaches where it's just very direct. So like I have a problem and then people just come up with a solution, not thinking about all the changes that could happen as a result of the way that you solve the problem. So there's, entrepreneurial thinking, which is kind of like ready, fire, aim. or entrepreneurial approach, I shouldn't say thinking. You're like, I have a solution in mind, and I'm going to go out there and build it and try to find the people that the problem that it solves for them, or technology focused. So it's really just starting with the human needs. And to do that, you have to start with doing a lot of research and understanding the people that are involved. And I can't juxtapose it against other ways of design, because human-centered design is different from, say, like user interface design, right? Or other aspects of design. So it's broad in nature, I would say.
That makes sense. We wanted to directly ask you why product design is essential in building products. However, you hit that indirectly earlier in the conversation. Is there anything else you would like to add to that point?
I would say so. I think the only part that's missing in that discussion was, we talked a lot about at the beginning phases and sort of work with the team and conceptualize things. But design also plays a very significant role in the build out and the execution of the solution. So, if you imagine, I like to sort of, people sometimes have a hard time conceptualizing the design, the work that we do in experience, service, and product design, because you can't really touch it, right? It's not like something that you can see or feel on a day-to-day basis. So I sort of use the analogy of architects and building buildings. And I think a lot of designers do this as well. So if we're sort of the architects in the role of as designers, we're not just conceptualizing the building and doing. I worked for Autodesk for 6 years, so I have a lot of too much understanding, I think, of the architecture process. They're doing zoning, they're looking at the land, they're looking at how the sun moves, they're looking at all kinds of ecological and environmental factors, and we do too, but it's at a different scale, of course. And so they're looking at, okay, where's the building going to go on the land, and how is it oriented, and how is it going to make best use of the context. Once you have those pieces figured out, what's the flow of people through the inside of the building, how many rooms, blah, 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 all that stuff, then you're going into the detailed design levels. So what does each room, floor, every part of the building look like? They're doing blueprints, they're doing all that detailed level design, and they're doing all of the documentation. So we do that as well as in the experience design. We're documenting out whether it's workflows step by step, or it's screens, or all those kinds of things. We're starting to document and specify all parts of just for the sake of simplicity, software. Let's just say software. So we're talking screens, layouts, step by step workflows. Well, the architect doesn't go away once those blueprints are built. They play a very significant role alongside the builders, the general contractors, to ensure that the building is actually being built to spec. It's being built the way that it was intended to be built. Inevitably, something comes up, something doesn't work in practice as it does on paper. So they're also there to be available to make quick adjustments. Oh, well, we didn't think about this weird thing that could have happened, so let's make some adjustments on the fly. And so they provide that service, and they ensure that, that they're delivering the building as promised to their customers, the owner of the building. Same for designers. They stay alongside the development team to ensure that the delivery, or to ensure that the product is being built to a level of quality and specification that we've detailed out. And so that, going back to what we're talking about with facilitation, if you get, you get marketing, or you get a salesperson and they start seeing some early, alpha, or like they get a demo in an all hands meeting or something, and they're like, what the hell is going on? Because what I saw in the prototype is not what I'm seeing here in this demo. And you want to try to avoid that at all costs. You don't want to have those kinds of conversations. So the design function can help ensure that there's less gaps between what you've promised and what you're delivering. And if you do have differences, there's some rationale for it. Oh, we realized that this thing came up and we couldn't solve for it in this way, so we had to make some on-the-fly adjustments. And then you can communicate that out. So you're just trying to, again, no surprises.
Do you have an example where you used human-centered design and you were able to uncover something that you didn't anticipate?
I have so many examples. we were working with an e-prescribing company, and it's kind of a classic scenario. They're like, we need to modernize our application. It looks like it was built in 1998. People are complaining it's hard to use. And so we're like, okay, we go in there and we start, opening up the body and start doing research and really understanding the workflows. And while they're thinking that they want to modernize the product, to be honest, as someone who's done this a lot of times, you always know that that's really not the problem. Because if you just want to reskin it, like you're not going to get very far. So when we started mapping out the workflows and talking to the pharmacists or talking to the providers who were prescribing, and then also the pharmacists, hearing from their side of the things, the problems were like the classic problems that you've experienced when you've gone to pick up your medicine, right? It's like you get there and your pharmacy benefits don't cover the medicine, or there's like a lot of human problems that were documented, but also their diversity of their customer base was so significant that we had to work on solving for prescribing in a really, really, really tight time constraint, like a tight window, meaning that the patient had to get their medicine at a very specific time, because for a whole host of reasons. One, because of the nature of the medicine, they couldn't have a break in the medicine at all. And then the timing of that, plus when their pharmacy was open, plus the benefits, all of that stuff. That was one thing. And then you had the other customers that were like, they just only prescribed these 5 medications because they had a really specific focus for their practice. And they didn't want to be like picking these 5 different medications from the whole laundry list of medications in the whole database. They just wanted to batch it. They're like, just sit, here's a prescription set. And so it turned out that the problem, like they could have kept the same look and feel, but if you fixed all the workflows, you would have saved the prescribers tons and tons of time. The big insight, though, the hugest one, was we uncovered that the doctors really wanted to use the information that they had access to in their fingertips to have better conversations with their patients, to really talk about options for their care. And maybe they couldn't afford the medicine. They wouldn't be able to find out until they got to the pharmacy. Maybe there was side effects that they had been struggling with. So there were just so many things that they weren't having the opportunity to have the conversations about because the information wasn't presented in a way, or wasn't available and brought together in a way that the doctor could say, hey, what about this? What about that? Right? They couldn't bring up those kinds of conversations because they just weren't presented with the options.
Yeah. And did I hear you say reskinning is kind of like never the option or never the right answer?
Yeah.
Please elaborate more, because I can't tell you how many times I've been in. That's been someone's answer multiple times. Like I've heard that as being like, this is the answer to our problem. So like, tell me why, so that other people listening to this could be like, reskinning is not a good idea.
I think it's a waste of time and money. What does it solve? What does it get you? I mean, it might get you some marketing splash. Look, we redid it. And but as soon as people start using it, they'll realize it's the same old dog underneath the hood. Mm-hmm. Do you want to buy a Ferrari that has a Chevy, Ford, Honda engine in it? It looks great. It's amazing. You get it and you're like, why doesn't this have any power? Oh, but I just repainted it. It looks great. I just put a new body on it. It just doesn't help you at all. And you can put you can change the colors and change the typeface, but it's not going to give you a better experience. Design is how things work, right? If you want to improve a product, you have to improve how it works.
Yeah. I've heard people say things like, it makes us look more professional and more like representative of the maturity that we have. And, guests or customers or clients or users will come in and they'll think, oh, I'm working with the real deal here. And so,
let's get into this, because this is a whole thing.
You find yourself kind of believing the narrative almost. Like I've heard it and I've been like, that kind of makes some sense.
Okay. Your podcast is called Concept to Care, right? In my opinion, design is care. How you do anything is how you do everything in an organization, right? How much do you care? How much do you care about your users? Mm-hmm. And if you just want to make it look nice, then as soon as someone starts to use it and things break or it's buggy or it crashes or it doesn't solve for the problem that they're trying to, solve for, or they have to hack it by pulling a piece of data or, something from one part of the application's interface and another part of the application's interface and put it in a spreadsheet or write it down on a Post-it note or something like that. And they're doing all this heavy lifting in their brain. They're going to become frustrated and the patina is going to, like the shine is going to wear off and they'd be like, it's just a piece of crap. I don't care how nice it looks. How does it work? And if it doesn't work and it's not well thought through and it's not well designed, then people just feel like you don't care about them. You're like, oh, well, I have this problem, but like they don't care about this and it falls apart and it's crappy. So if I call customer service, are they going to treat me like crap? Do they even care? Are they going to fix it for me? Do they even have a solution? Like, what's it going to be like? And so I feel like the whole experience, not just the product, but the whole journey of being a customer or a user of a product or service, from customer support to the product itself to the sales, process, all that stuff has to be in alignment. All that stuff has to work together cohesively so that, if the product itself is working great, maybe there's some self-serve options in there or something like that, and people can do some things themselves. Great, awesome. But if they pick up the phone and call customer service and they're put on hold for 2 hours, or they get somebody who can't answer their question, or they get bounced around to 5 different people and then booted, like that's a terrible experience. So how you do anything is how you do everything inside of an organization. If an organization truly care about their customers and users, then they'll invest in and ensure that all of the touch points along the way for the service and product they're delivering, work and are of decent enough quality. And the people that are answering the phones care about the people that are calling in, and they can have the resources or have the, autonomy to try to solve problems for them. So that, you can learn a lot about a company by calling their customer support line. And, again, like I said, design is care, because design is all about your intent, right? You're documenting or you're stating your intent. We believe this, and what really matters to an organization, right? What really matters to the people that are solving problems or serving opportunities. And then they're defining what works, right? So you take that intent and you're defining how you're going to solve for it. And then the care part is, how are you going to do it? Like, what wows people? How are you going to impress people? How are you going to really serve them? How are you going to think about things and serve them in ways that have never been served, that they've never been served before? There's so many consumer examples of this, and they're the classic ones we all go to. There's Airbnb, there's Uber, there's all kinds of stuff from Apple. There's all these companies that show that they care in really specific ways. And how they do anything is how they do everything.
Yeah. The challenge. So a couple thoughts on that. One, I'll just hit the challenge thing. I think though, it's like one has actual, like those are really good consumer problems. Those companies do really well at solving consumer problems. Healthcare is also a consumer problem, but healthcare is, the process of maintaining and improving one's health over time, and treating and either chronic diseases or what have you, and that's more of a slog, I think. So it's like it's a hard investment.
Yeah, healthcare is massive. It's like comparing it to I don't know, education. It's just, there's problems abound. There's stuff to solve everywhere, and it's even more complicated because you have government involved. You have all kinds of entrenched interests and what have you. But I
think, if you're the product manager or the you're a product manager, product designer, engineer, and you're listening to this, and I think a product manager's job is to make bets. And so if you're at your organization and you hear someone's bet is, we need to reskin this, I think
I'd be like, why? What's the problem? What's the problem? Okay, so if you say, well, we just relaunched a new brand in the market.
Yeah.
And we redesigned our whole brand presentation, like our logos and all those kinds of things for the web and the marketing. Okay, fine. Right. Throw a little money into the product and change some things there. But like, don't do it for the sake of doing it. Don't just reskin because you want to make it look quote unquote modern. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's a total, it's like blasphemy, right? Because it's like, I'm a designer and I'm saying don't put money in that.
No.
I just feel like it's a waste.
This is a good segue to solution validation. So like, how can design help validate some of the solutions within products, right? Yeah, just like straight up, like how do they, make sure we're making bets, we're going out, we're proposing, folks are proposing solutions. How do we validate that?
Yeah. So I would say that we don't validate. Design doesn't validate anything, right? Because, there's no such thing as a right answer. There's, like you said, there's a lot of bets. And so our job isn't to validate the bet. It's to find all the places where it can go sideways and opportunities that you might be missing or nuances that might really impact how you solve for it. And so we want to inform the bet and give you more information to build your confidence to understand that you're heading in the right direction. We're not going to tell you should go for this or not. Designers aren't going to tell you that. They're just going to inform you and do the best that we can to deliver the best experience for that bet. But then try to find out where it doesn't work. And then if you're willing to take that risk, maybe the risk is something can happen. It's a huge thing can happen, but it's like a 1 in a million chance. You'd be like, yeah, I'm going to take that bet. There could be a risk that is uncovered where it's like something is missing or something could potentially happen every single time, but it's a really minor thing and people might just be annoyed by it. You might be like, I'm going to take that bet too, because we need to ship or whatever. And there's probably a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. But the thing is that we're presenting, information. We give you the options and you make the decisions ultimately. And that's my philosophy, right? I'm going to tell you, I think you should, I think this is important and here's the impact that it's going to have on the user and their perception of your product, service, company, brand. And then you can make that call. Maybe you want to, maybe it's above your pay grade and be like, here's what we discovered. And, should we go for this or should we not? Or should we invest a little bit more time in fixing it? You make those decisions. Yeah. So we don't validate, right? We're assessing and giving you the information that you need to make those decisions.
Yeah. So for example, like you could have a conversion funnel for an expensive product and the product manager's bet is like, hey, this product price point is really high. I want to introduce buy now, pay later to increase conversion rates. So like I want to put a Klarna or a pay later or Affirm. And it's not design's job to say that's correct. Design should have been involved in identifying that, hey, your product that you're selling, one, this is the friction in your funnel, right? Your funnel, we're getting a lot of drop off here at payment.
Yep.
And when we looked into it, it seems that they understand the value prop of this said thing, but there's either, let's say that I found 5 other examples. They all have the same value prop and they're cheaper in the market and equally as good. Or the way you've positioned yourself to sell to people who don't have the income to purchase this kind of thing. And so you're more saying that than I see.
Yeah. Okay. Let's find out why there's drop off. Did you put the buy button below the fold? Like, it could be anything. Is the color wrong? It could be anything psychographic. It could be like location. It could be a bigger problem. And let's like get at that problem. Don't just say, and this is what, this is the difference between human-centered design and like others, like, oh, well, there's a drop off. So we just are going to get, buy now, pay later. But you don't know if that's going to fix it. How about if we just do a little bit of research to try to understand why people might be dropping off?
Yeah. This leads me to like structure design in a health tech org. So I actually I truly believe this, that I haven't really seen. There are you've seen good examples. I've seen a lot of bad examples of how people do this. Health tech organizations don't really know how to work well with designers, I think at times. And I think it's by virtue of like, you're so far removed from customer. The customer's the patient. Patients don't pay for healthcare. Partners do, payers, providers, pharma, whoever. So, in that, what are the steps involved in standing up a design function at a health tech organization? Is it any different? Like, who are the right people? What characteristics should they have? Like, what are those skills?
Well, again, it depends on how big the organization is and what their goals are. So if you're a startup, you're going to want to start with, if you want to bring design to the organization, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can bring in a freelancer or, an outside consultancy or an agency or something to kind of get you quick fix and get you over the hump and get you where you need to go for a short period of time. If you want to start building out an internal organization because you truly believe that you truly believe that design can be a functional differentiator for you in the market, then, you're going to want to start with a generalist. You're going to want to start with someone who can do soup to nuts, that can fly by the seat of their pants, that can adapt with a growing, changing organization that's small and nimble. And, with founders that are, that have active ADD and unmedicated and the shiny new objects are coming in and they're changing gears and whatever, they can live within that environment. It's not always like that, but sometimes. And then for more mature organizations, like if you're talking about a healthcare organization and a hospital system or something, care delivery, a lot of these designers show up and live in either the IT organizations or they live in some sort of internal consulting organization for innovation, and they start to build out like that. So it really depends on the goals of the organization and the size and the level of design maturity that they're already at. And when I say design maturity, I mean how mature is the organization when it comes to experience design? Do they understand, like I said, do they understand the value of it? Do they believe in it? Or do they think it's oh, I want you to come and just make things look pretty? So how much education and work do you need to do with the leadership team to get the buy-in, to get the understanding of those folks to be able to truly leverage design as a differentiator, as opposed to let's just reskin it or make it look pretty or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You and I had this interesting conversation a few weeks back. You were talking about design as a superhero. Can you kind of discuss the concept of designers as superheroes and why this is potentially damaging?
So the dirty little secret, I guess, in the world of product, maybe it's not a secret, but there's this, in some cases, this prevalent philosophy that a designer can come in and fix everything. All you gotta do is hire a designer. All you gotta do is hire somebody or bring somebody in that's gonna solve all your problems, because all you need is design thinking, human-centered design, whatever it is. They're just gonna come in and solve it. And that's just setting the whole organization and the designer up for failure, complete failure. I think that there is a sense of, number one, arrogance on the part of the designer to think that they can actually take on that kind of problem. They don't have the skills to fix everything all at once. And the expectation that they could potentially change a whole organization is also fraught with, trouble. So there's some talk where, or there's a philosophy or a theory or something that because designers are trained in a very specific way to come up with the solution and then present it and, get all the accolades and awards and, oh, everything's so great and applause and everything, that therefore they take that sort of idea, experience, attitude into the workplace with them. I wasn't trained that way, so I can only take that from, other folks that have been trained that way or have seen that. But, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of friction inside of organizations. And when you have designers in and come in and, they're trying to solve for everything and they think that they can, and they're just going to fail left, right, and center. If they don't build consensus, if they're not, driving alignment, if they're not getting people to share their expectations and their needs, and if you're not facilitating all those conversations and getting people to talk and move kind of in a similar direction, like we talked about earlier, obviously it's not the only designers, not the only ones that are facilitating that, but at least for the product or the service that you're designing, they can't just come in and try to fix everything. It's a recipe for failure. I've seen it happen too many times, right? And designers get burned out because they've set themselves up for failure. The organization gets pissed off. People are expecting things that don't end up happening. And I've seen a lot of designers in my teams even think they're going to fly in, they're going to fix everything, and then they're going to fly out. And it's just like they end up burning out. Everybody gets frustrated with them. They're not delivering the quality or the results that everybody wants or people want. And they just end up, quitting. And it's really frustrating. And then it leaves a bad taste in the organization's mouth, collective mouth, for the role of design. So I think we need to be more focused on collaboration and facilitation and bringing the experts to the table to co-create and co-design solutions together as an organization, as a business, as a company, or whatever.
I think it's a good transition to what you're saying is like the focus, the designer isn't, them designing this solution isn't really, the answer,
right.
Everyone's problems, but, the customer is at the center of what we need to be thinking about. But another thing is like, what are we trying to accomplish, and what are the metrics or KPIs? This is how we what objectives do we have? What KPIs are we setting for ourselves? So I'm wondering, question is like, what KPI should be used to measure the success of a design function at a health tech company, so that it is, baked into real expectation, something, tangible.
Yeah. So I would change the question a little bit, is less about the KPIs of the design function and more about the KPIs of the design work. Mm-hmm. So what matters to you as a business? Are you interested in patient satisfaction or product performance, or are you focused on design team efficiencies or process? There's different metrics that you can apply to all these different things. Are you really focused on revenue growth? And how can you leverage design to get you there, right? So what are the metrics for the thing that they're working on? And are they moving the needle on that? And you can do A/B, you can measure the before and after to see if the design changes are really having an impact. The big problem with trying to measure design is that this function is so far removed from the actual end product. You have marketing, you have sales, you have engineering, you have all these things that are between the functionality or the capability of and the work of design and what gets put into the hands of the end users, that it's hard to sometimes, not always, but it's hard to know what was the thing that actually moved the needle. If you're looking for revenue growth and there was a bunch of design changes that were made to improve that, but also you launched, a new marketing campaign and you opened a new territory in your sales organization, what really moved the needle? And how do you take those metrics? Because metrics are important, right? How do you dissect those metrics to really understand what the impact of the design piece was versus the rest of the organization? Yeah. And so trying to isolate that. So sticking to things like, satisfaction or a drop in customer support calls or I should say customer complaints anyways. You can start to measure those things, but it's really about what's the product being measured by and what's important to the business to really understand. So design's role is a function of the business. You're trying to deliver something for the business. So therefore it should be measured on that, those metrics as well, but in their own flavor. Patient outcomes, patient engagement, is that a big deal? Is that what you're looking for? Those kinds of things. So I can't say that there's the NPS score is the only thing that matters for a design team. Yeah. Well, what if you don't care about NPS as a business? Yeah. Then why would you dump that onto a design team?
Yeah, thinking out loud here, business goals, ideally everyone's department goals kind of roll up into business goals, but I think department goals, when I think about that, the three-legged stool, engineering is an interesting set of KPIs that they track. It's they're responsible for delivery and quality. So how quickly are they delivering and how quality is their build? Do they have good uptime, downtime? Are they reducing the amount of incidents or bugs that are being produced? Sure. Are they, every 2-week sprints or whatever increments they're planning in, are they planning the right amount and hitting it? Are they moving, exceeding that target, right? And that's that's how I'd evaluate a scrum team or a sprint team, engineers who are contributing to the product. I'm sure design has its own set of those things, but
right. We have usability metrics, right? We can measure time on task. We can measure success rates. We can measure all those kinds of things. Absolutely.
But, when you look at the company stuff, it's a weird, you guys, we all own it. We all own the, know if I could say that like product managers or like engineers or, product designers, individually own certain parts of that, right?
Right.
That's where the gets a little clunky.
And I'm sure there's other people out there that have better handle on some of the metrics that they've applied. But having worked in healthcare, like you just said, having worked in healthcare inside of enterprise organizations where you're so far removed from the customer, there's so much that can happen between your work and what gets shipped that it's hard you can measure all kinds of things, right? But, how do you know whether you provided that change or it was some other part? You have to make sure you have that part of it as well covered.
How does Conway's Law influence the organization of design?
So Conway's Law states that effectively we ship our communication structure of the organization to our customers, right? So our products and services reflect the communication structure of the company that they came from. I actually proposed a corollary to that pre-COVID in 2018, where I was like, okay, well, if that's true, then they also ship the biases and, the lack of diversity or diversity in the team inside of that organization. So, hey, more diverse teams ship better products. So if you understand Conway's Law, then, and you want to ship a product that has a cohesive user experience, then you should structure your organization in a way that can deliver the experience and the result that you want to get, right? So you shouldn't be designing, I'm trying to get us some like organizational, design stuff, but you shouldn't be building an organization in a vacuum without understanding that you're going to ship it basically to your customers. So you should be thoughtful in how you design the organization to deliver the quality and the experience that you want to deliver. So it's not just the organization of design teams, right? So there's a lot of conversations around, should design be centralized? Is it Is it like marketing, right? So it's like you just have a centralized team and they serve all the parts of the business. If it has multiple parts, maybe they get, charged out to different product teams, or should they be distributed into the product teams and have a matrixed kind of organizational structure? If you're not thinking about what you want to deliver to your customers, then how do you answer those questions? Because you can have arguments on both sides of it. Well, I think it should be centralized because we want the designers to be able to grow in their careers and we want them to have, be able to provide a unified experience across all the products. And we have to do that through the centralization of a design team. Counter to that, well, how are they going to be able to influence the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day build out of all of the products and services if they're not, integrated into the teams that they're delivering with? And then how do you build trust, and on and on and on, right? So it's sort of this back and forth, centralized, decentralized, centralized, decentralized. But the real question is, what are you trying to deliver? How are you structuring your organization to deliver it? Are you just structuring it by, product feature? Are you structuring it by steps in the customer journey? How are you structuring the organization to deliver the thing that you want to, or the experience that you want to deliver?
Let's hit something interesting that might spawn a difference of opinions. Let's talk about prototyping. Like, what is prototyping, and what's best practice, and what does it feel like when you're actually prototyping versus maybe not?
I mean, my philosophy is that prototyping is everything from a conversation to like sample code that somebody can play around with. And I think that there's this unspoken expectation out there in software land right now that prototyping is Figma. Period. End of story.
Oh no.
And so I think that's just it's like you're shipping your first idea. Okay, you got to prototype this. Okay, go into Figma and make it. You're like, well, how about if we have a conversation first? How about if we get in front of a whiteboard? How about if we draw some stuff in pencil and paper? How about if we, tell a story? Storyboarding and telling stories is my favorite type of prototyping. You're sharing ideas of what the experience should be like with someone else. They can respond to it. They can react to it. You can share it with customers, and they can get their feedback on it. It's like story is so powerful a prototyping method. whether it's, 2 or 3 slides in a PowerPoint deck, or, a comic book that you've made, or a movie, right? We actually made a movie once in a previous company. Hired actors and went on location, and it was amazing. And it was a prototype
Sounds
to tell
expensive.
A story. Well, yeah, it was definitely expensive. I think they were trying to use it to raise money too, but they had multiple purposes, but it was amazing. And so prototyping is all of those things, from, low fidelity to super, super high interactive. Super high fidelity is very interactive. And I want to break this idea that Figma is the end all be all of prototyping.
Yeah, people will jump to Figma pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, too quickly.
And then often it's like not even real. And very much in waterfall approaches, you'll see this, right? They're like, well, where's the asset that I can interact with?
Yeah. What's
I
a
want
deliverable
to see in Figma so I can comment on the thing.
And they're like, I don't like this blue. And you're like, I don't even care about the blue. Does this step in the process make sense?
All of healthcare is blue.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, that was a bad example, but you get caught up in the stupidest, most irrelevant conversations when you're going to high fidelity prototyping out of the gate. You really are.
I've started screen sharing ChatGPT prompts. Like, I will get into ChatGPT
That's
and
brilliant.
I will start prompting, and I will start like, this is what we're talking about. And it'll be like, show me this table, add these fields, put it nested under some tabulated profile structure. And it just starts, no, you didn't quite get that right. Like, try like this, here's a better example than give an attachment. And it does such a great job. And I've had folks go like, like they have to hit that aha moment.
Yeah.
And it was fairly inexpensive. Like, it was just me prompting.
So I'm going to tell you a story. I was working with a company. God, this was 4 years ago or something, 4 years ago. And it's a practice management software company. And they were, doing a modernization kind of thing. They were actually smushing 3 companies together in 3 different products on 3 different platforms. So iOS, web, and like Windows, whatever. And they were making a SaaS product out of it. And so we went out, did all the research, talked to their customers, trying to understand the workflows, going through the practices, everything from the patient walking through the door, sitting in the lobby, filling out the papers, to the, their encounter, working with the provider, and then checking out all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so did all this work. We had a bunch of concepts, a bunch of ideas, and we were using storyboarding as a prototyping methodology in this early phases. So we're trying to inform our ideas for how we could solve and, reimagine this whole platform. And so we made, I don't even know, I have an illustrator on my team. So he was doing these incredible drawings. We had this main character and this main, doctor and the whole thing. And so we walked through this story of just an encounter, right? Pre-visit, visit, post-visit. And one of the core components of it was there was a tablet. It was like heavily based on a tablet interface. And so when the patient walked in, they were given a tablet and they had to fill out all their forms on the tablet. And then while they were waiting, they could peruse some materials. And then they would bring the tablet in with them to the room. And then they could have their encounter there and their chart would be there and all that kind of stuff. So we proceeded to tell this whole amazing story all the way through to, like I said, to checkout and post-visit follow-ups. And we were doing the listening tour, bringing it back to the customers we had already interviewed, and we were walking them through it and collecting all kinds of amazing information and insights about how that would work for them and what their thoughts were and how things, stumble, how it would work in their practice and if their clinicians would stumble through it or whatever. We get to this one. I'll never forget this conversation. We introduce it. We're walking through. We're like, I don't even know, 6 or 7 slides in, and the owner, the owner of the multiple practices, he says, "Hang on a second." And he says, "So we have 14 exam rooms in our practice in one location. Are you telling me that I need to buy 14 iPads for my practice in order to use this software solution, this practice management solution?" And so as a researcher, I've been trained thoroughly to never answer those kinds of questions, right? You don't answer the questions. It's like, well, tell me what you think about that. If that were to be the case, tell me what you think about that. And you use their questions as an opportunity to dig further into the prompts behind it, what they're thinking and what they're reacting to. So I said something like, well, if this were to be the case, what would that mean for you, or something like that. And he just went on a whole financial rant about the impact that would have on his business and how he wouldn't want to go with the solution if that was the case, and on and on and on. Right. So when you do this kind of, and the prototype that we made, again, it was like a bunch of pencil sketches. It was written in it was drawn in a cartoony kind of format. It probably took us about a week of, not full time, but just iterative design of the storyboard itself, and then recruiting all the participants or getting all the people scheduled to go through it. Didn't take that long at all. Super cheap, really fast. And we started getting that level of feedback. Could you imagine if we had gotten all the way out to high fidelity, prototyping, and the dev team was getting stood up to build the tech stack, and we were doing it full steam ahead, only to find out that 50% of their, I'm just making a number up, but some portion of their customers would be like, no freaking way are we going to buy this because it requires iPads, right? That's the kind of stuff that it can save you in the long run when you get out in front of customers and you give them give them the concepts and the ideas in super low fidelity and story form and get their feedback.
It's expensive. I mean, how many expensive activities happened like that potentially avoid, engineers are picking up components like, library, what I mean?
You're hiring a whole outsourced team in Argentina or something to build this. Yeah. Full steam ahead. And you're haven't even
mobile enabling things. You're making it accessible. You're thinking about all these other things. So no, totally get it. Gosh. Let's talk about Forge Harmonic a little bit.
Do we have to?
You're the founder. Yes,
I know, but I'd rather talk about the work because it's so much more interesting.
Goodness, try to talk about not selling. So let's talk about Forge Harmonic. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about your company's mission and the unique approach you take towards design with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. If you insist. So our mission, healthcare, as we talked about before, is massive and complex and what have you. And there's a lot of different areas that we could really focus in on. We could be broad and big picture, and we could focus on other areas. But our mission is really to advance the experience of care delivery. So we're really focused on, improving the patient experience through the delivery of care. And we do that by really, designing innovative human-centered products, services, and systems for healthcare organizations, whether they're hospital systems, clinical care deliveries, clinical care organizations, or software companies. So that's really our focus. And then how we do it is we focus on a partnership model. So rather than consulting model, we really focus on partnering with our clients and engaging with them in a really deep and co-creative and collaborative way, so that we're ensuring alignment, we're ensuring facilitation, we're ensuring that there aren't any surprises as we're co-creating this, their solution along the way. Our clients have a vision, and we're there to help them achieve it and bring to life solutions that meet their unique part of their goals and serve their end users, customers, and what have you in the way that they want.
Yeah, it's incredible. Incredible offering, incredible service. Could you share specific success stories where your work significantly improved the delivery of care?
So I talked a little, I want to say that I talked about the e-prescribing solution that we worked on. That was probably, really one of the more rewarding examples of getting into the workflows, understanding the needs, and then really changing not just the way that they delivered the care, the providers delivered the care, but also based on the feedback that we've had from the clients themselves, got the organizations to start thinking about their end users and their customers in a different way. So they're using it to They've used it to change the way that they think about their acquisitions. So as they bring in other companies, which is really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. They used the work that we did to rethink their front end and back end tech stacks and how they're solving for how they're going to scale the work that they're doing. So it was pretty significant. We just finished a project with cardiac tech company, post-discharge congestive heart failure organization. And I don't have data to say what the impact was, but the work that we did during the process was very fulfilling. It was one of my favorite projects because we had such a deep integration with the clinicians. We had cardiologists in every call, almost team of nurses. And so they were in there, they were raising questions, concerns, problems, needs at every single step along the way. So that's to be built. And I don't have answers to how has it fundamentally changed the delivery of care yet, but I hope to have that information soon.
Yeah, it's very cool, very impactful. What gives you hope and optimism about healthcare today?
There are a lot of really interesting things happening in a lot of really interesting corners of healthcare. Selfishly, the use of the term patient experience and that the increasing popularity of the concept of patient experience really excites me. It's very selfish, of course. Focusing on the patient experience as not just being are they getting the medicine they need? Are they getting the care they need? But what's the experience that they're having with their providers, with their healthcare organizations, the institutions, is really exciting to me. The trend of moving care outside of the hospital into the home, pushing that out, and all of the technology and services that are being built and deployed to support that is also really exciting. And then also selfishly, I'm so excited about the interest and investment in research in women and, femtech and the investment in solving for women's unique biology and women's unique needs. Those are things that are really exciting to me.
And before we move into our concept closing call, who are the types of customers or partners that you sort of look forward to working with?
We typically partner with chief product officers in the software organizations, SaaS vendors. And then in hospitals, we work with the CIOs or chief information officers, chief innovation officers, and folks that are more pushing the boundaries on the clinical care side that have the influence to get those kinds of projects done as well. Sometimes a really unique person will kind of pop out of the woodwork and was yeah, I would love to work with you on X, Y, and Z. So it's mostly folks that are at the leadership level that can have that kind of influence on the organization, on the business itself, company itself.
Got it. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're one of those individuals or someone in need of a service like Forge Harmonic, reach out. We're hitting our very exciting concept closing call. This portion of the podcast is meant to be rapid fire questions. We ask you things and just quick answers, and
cool.
It should be meant to be really fun. First question is, what is a tool that you highly value or you find highly valuable and you think others may not be using?
Paper.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I thought this was fast.
Okay.
Paper because geez, people, get out of your computers. Go sit in a coffee shop and draw something. Get your sketches down. You can have tiny pieces of paper. I used to, back in pre-COVID, I had a printer that would print 4 foot wide by infinite long, printouts. And I would print workflows and charts and everything on 8 feet long and hang it up on a wall and then hang Sharpie markers all over. Be like, people, let's get together in a room, next in front of this poster and just beat the crap out of it. So, wall Post-its, it doesn't fit in the size of the screen and you're not limited by just your cursor and your, keyboard and your eyeballs. It's a whole physical experience. It can be. So paper, I stick to it.
Okay.
That's my story. And
that's your tool of choice. Normally we ask, do you think product management is a science or an art? But since you are not a product manager, do you think product design is a science or an art?
Yes.
to both?
Yes.
Or both? Yes.
Do I think that it is a science or an art? Yes, I do. I think it is both. It's both. The science part, right? So I have a master's degree in human factors. So there's the whole understanding of cognitive science and understanding the human system, human visual system, how we process information, how we are in the world. We are just giant walking sensors, basically, processing information all the time. So to understand how that works so you can leverage it and help people design things that serve them. But the art of it is how do you know when to apply what, and just your years of experience and trial and error, and just taking in other influences that you have in the world and kind of smashing that all together. And you might go to a museum and see a statue, you'd be like, oh, that inspires me to do this thing that I'm working on in a project that I have for healthcare.
Do you have any shameless plugs, and where can people get in contact with you if they want to reach out to you?
Do I have to? No. Yeah. So website forgeharmonic.com. There's no S at the end of harmonic. So forgeharmonic.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn lately. So you can find me there.
All right. Awesome. Well, Lisa, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Our first product designer, leader, trade, anything, all things product design. So
my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure I pissed a lot of people off and left a lot of questions unanswered, but let's keep the conversation going. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Love it. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. If you liked this episode, don't forget to leave us a rating and a review on your podcast app of choice. And make sure to click the follow button so you never miss a new episode. This episode was produced and edited by Marvin Yue with research help from Aditya Triya. We're Angela and Omar, and you've been listening to Concept to Care.